Thank you very much. And thank you all the way in the back for being here. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening to my remarks. And we do have microphones here. If you would just raise your hand. Maybe before we go much further, I'm always honored to have our veterans here. So could I ask our veterans to just raise your hand and thank you for serving. Would you stand? Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. I'm honored by your service. You just raise your hand, and I'll be glad to have the microphone over to speak to you.
Senator?
Sure.
I'm Dr. Chuck McGowan, and I'm a retired physician, and as we are all very well aware, there is a health care issue in this country that has not yet been solved either by government or by those business associations that are called HMOs. As a matter of fact, those issues were put into practice because the cost of medicine was going up. The cost of medicine has continued to go up, and there has been a cost shifting from the pockets of those who deliver health care to those who manage health care. I wondered, Senator, what kind of a solution you might have to that problem.
First of all, I thank you, sir, and I thank you for being a member of a wonderful and honorable profession. I guess the key to it, in my view, and by the way, if you want to keep the microphone in case you want to have a follow-up comment or question, because the challenge of America today is our economy, as we know. But probably the lingering and most severe part of that is anyone's ability to keep and afford health care, particularly as we move from job to job, particularly as the inflation continues to be at or near double digit in our healthcare system. I start out with the premise, and this is why I want you to keep the mic. Would you just that the highest quality healthcare in the world is here in the United States of America. The problem is not the quality of it; it's the cost of it. So those that want to have a massive government takeover of our healthcare system, I recommend that they take a visit to Canada or some other countries where that's happened before they support a government-run healthcare system. This is one of the differences. This is one of the differences between myself and Senator Obama and Senator Clinton. So, I believe very strongly that affordability and availability, and we need to do a long series of steps which ensure that. And by the way, one of them is if you want to go to Canada and get some prescription drugs there, it's fine with me. But the most important thing, I think, is to understand that there are very fundamental keys to this. One is I'd like to have the families make the choices, and that means giving every family in America a $5,000 refundable tax credit that would allow them to go across state lines any place in the world and acquire a health insurance policy. I want us to treat these 5 chronic diseases that consume 75% of the health care costs in America on an outcome basis. In other words, someone has diabetes, treat them for a year. Give a provider an opportunity to treat them for a year, and if the patient is in good shape after that, reward them for that treatment, rather than every single test, every single procedure. I believe in community health clinics. I believe it would be very important, and I think if we forget everything that I tell you on this issue today, one of the most disturbing and alarming statistics that we have seen recently is the fact that obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes is on the rise amongst young Americans. In other words, wellness and fitness, wellness and fitness, wellness and fitness. And we have to put incentives for that to happen. I'd like to see every great athlete in America go to every school in America and talk about wellness and fitness to our school children. I'd like to have every parent find out what the school lunch program is in their school. I'd like to have every parent find out what the physical education requirements are in those schools. and I think it's vital. There's one other aspect about the cost, and there's many other aspects. This is the subject of not only entire town hall meetings, but the great debate that's raging across this country. But right now, emergency room care is the most expensive. That's why I believe in walk-in clinics, community health centers, etc. But another huge expense, as you know, is institutionalized long-term care. In Arizona, we put in a program called Access, which incentivizes home health care as compared with institutionalized health care, long-term care facilities. And on a per capita basis, we have the lowest number of people being the highest number who are receiving home health care, which I think you would agree as a physician is probably the most comfortable and best environment for someone to receive care as they grow older, as opposed to the institutionalized care. We've placed incentives in. We've got to do a lot of that kind of thing to incentivize lower cost health care and at the same time maintain that quality. Please respond.
Senator, when I went into practice, medicine was in a state of free enterprise. Now, we know as Republicans and conservatives that the best way to run business in this country is through the free enterprise system. And let the market determine the cost. In other words, if we got back into free enterprise, the cost of seeing a physician would go down, and people wouldn't be running to emergency rooms to be seen. And that's the answer. Free enterprise, not the control of third parties. And along with that free enterprise, you've got to lower the cost of practicing medicine because of our litigious society and the exorbitant costs of malpractice insurance.
Well, may I say I agree. I agree, and we have to have medical malpractice reform. There's no doubt about that. I think if there's other physicians in this room, I think they would agree that many times tests and procedures are prescribed by that physician not because they think it's important for the health of the patient, but to protect them against malpractice suits, which obviously are bad for the patient, bad for healthcare costs, etc. That has to be a fundamental part of any effort we're going to make in order to reduce healthcare costs and make it affordable and available. Yes. Yes, sir.
Hello, Senator. Thanks for coming. I want to talk about, you mentioned Earth Day. That's kind of based on my question. I share your concern for environment and your sense of stewardship. And to me, I think the long-term economic stability depends on plentiful energy sources. So it's more of a longer-term question. There's been talk about alternative energy sources for a long, long time. I'm involved in a lot of efforts to get that off the ground, but it's just, I'm interested in your assessment on where we stand, what really has to happen to kind of get us kind of beyond that point we're at now.
Thank you. If I understand your question correctly, could I just interrupt? This person here is a friend of mine, but more importantly, a role model of mine. She began some years ago as a part-time secretary and ended up as the CEO and chairman of one of the largest corporations in America, Hewlett-Packard. Welcome Carly Fiorino, who is with us today. Who's very smart. Thank you. By the way, again, maybe you could let him keep the microphone, because if I understand your question right, the issue is climate change. Is that in protection of our...
And how are we going to get away from dependence on oil in favor of alternative energy sources?
Well, I think what's happening, the price of oil is devastating to our economy. It's a huge transfer of wealth from this country to countries that don't like us very much. It ends up in the hands, and this is a fact, and that money ends up in the hands of terrorist organizations. It is half of our trade deficit. It continues to go up. As I just came here, the price of oil just hit $218 a barrel or more. You are paying $3.50 a gallon when you fill up your gas tank. My friends, this is a national security issue.